Minneapolis, Minnesota. November 17, 1989, 11:47 p.m. The snow fell in thick, heavy flakes over Lake Street, muffling the city's late-night sounds into a cathedral silence. Inside Nicolette Bistro, the last customers had left 20 minutes ago. The kitchen staff was finishing cleanup. The overhead lights had been dimmed to that amber half-glow that made every restaurant look like a stage set after the performance ended. In the back corner booth, furthest from the door, furthest from the windows, a man sat alone with a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. He wore a purple knit cap pulled low, a black trench coat with the collar turned up. No sunglasses tonight. Just exhaustion. Just the weight of being Prince Rogers Nelson when all he wanted was to be nobody from Minneapolis for a few hours. The sign of the Times tour had ended 3 months ago. 64 cities, 104 shows. Every night transforming into the persona the world demanded. Every morning waking up alone in hotel rooms that all looked identical, wondering who he was when the lights went down and the crowds went home. His father hadn't spoken to him in 2 years. Warner Brothers was pressuring him to be more commercial, more radio-friendly, more like everyone else. The fame he'd built his entire life pursuing now felt like a prison with gold bars and purple walls. He came to Nicolette Bistro when the wait became unbearable. The owner, Miss Lorraine, a 72-year-old black woman who'd run this place since 1968, treated him like any other customer. No autographs, no photographs, just hot food, strong coffee, and the privacy to exist without performance. Tonight, Prince had been ready to leave for the past 30 minutes, had his coat on, had already paid the check, but something kept him in that booth. Some instinct he'd learned to trust over the years. The same instinct that told him which notes to play, which songs to write, which moments mattered. Then he heard it, a piano. The old Steinway in the corner near the kitchen, the one Miss Lorraine's late husband had bought in 1969 and kept because it reminded her of him. Someone was playing it, and someone was singing. A woman's voice, young, untrained, raw, singing A Case of You by Joni Mitchell. Prince froze. He knew that song, had listened to it 1,000 times. Joni's version was perfect, crystalline, unrepeatable. But this voice wasn't trying to be Joni. It was trying to be honest. And in that honesty, Prince heard something that made his hand stop reaching for his coat. He heard himself at 15 years old, sitting at his father's piano, trying to prove he was good enough. Désiré Johnson didn't know anyone was still in the restaurant. She'd finished her shift at 11:30, collected her tips, $47, enough to cover groceries for the week, and hung up her apron in the back room. She could have gone home, should have gone home. The last bus to North Minneapolis left in 20 minutes, and if she missed it, she'd be walking 40 minutes in the snow. But the piano was there. And when the piano was there, empty and waiting, Désiré couldn't leave. She'd been working at Nicolette Bistro for 10 months. Waitressing wasn't her dream. It was the thing she did to pay rent on a studio apartment she shared with her cousin. Her dream sat at the end of her fingers when they touched piano keys. Her dream lived in her throat when she sang. Her mother had been a singer, gospel mostly, church choirs and Sunday services. She died when Désiré was 14, cancer that moved too fast for miracles. Her last words to Désiré had been whispered in the hospital room at 2:47 a.m., so quiet that Désiré had to lean in close to hear them. Don't silence your voice, baby. God gave it to you for a reason. 10 years later, Désiré was 24 years old, carrying plates of jambalaya and cornbread to customers who didn't see her, saving money for a future she couldn't quite envision, and singing to an empty restaurant after hours because it was the only time she felt like herself. She played the opening chords of A Case of You. Her fingers found the melody easily. She'd taught herself piano by ear, listening to records her mother had left behind. Joni Mitchell, Nina Simone, Roberta Flack. Voices that carried weight, that understood how to turn pain into beauty. Désiré sang quietly, not performing, just singing, for herself, for her mother, for the empty room. She didn't hear the man in the back corner booth stand up, didn't hear his footsteps approaching across the worn wooden floor, didn't know anyone was listening until the song ended, and a voice spoke from the darkness behind her. You rushed the second verse. Désiré spun around on the piano bench. Her heart stopped, then started again, too fast, hammering against her ribs like it was trying to escape. Prince stood 3 feet away from her. No purple cap now, just a man with eyes that seemed to see through skin and bone directly into whatever made a person who they were. "I'm sorry," Désiré stammered. "I didn't know anyone was still here. I wasn't trying to—" "Why are you apologizing?" Prince's voice was soft, not angry, curious. I I thought everyone had left. I didn't mean to disturb—" "You didn't disturb me." Prince pulled up a chair, sat down facing the piano. "You rushed the second verse. You were nervous, so you sped up. The song doesn't need speed. It needs space, room to breathe." Désirée's hands were shaking. She clasped them in her lap to hide it. I've been practicing. How long have you been singing?" "Since I was a kid. My mother was a singer, gospel. She taught me before she—" Désirée's voice trailed off. Prince nodded, understanding without needing the words. "Play it again, slower this time." "Mr. Prince, I can't. It's just Prince, and you can." He leaned back in the chair. "Play it again. Trust the song. It'll wait for you." Désiré turned back to the piano. Her fingers found the keys. She started the opening chords again, but this time, when she reached the second verse, she remembered. "Slow down. Give the song space." She sang it the way her mother used to sing in church, not rushing toward the end, living in each moment, each word. When she finished, Prince was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Better. Much better." Désiré turned to face him. "What did I do different?" "You stopped performing and started praying." The words hit Désiré like a physical thing. She felt tears starting, fought them back. "I don't understand." Prince stood up, walked to the window. Outside, the snow was falling heavier now. "You know what my father told me when I was 15? Désiré shook her head. "He said I played the notes correctly, but I had no soul. He said music wasn't mathematics. It was prayer, and I was showing off instead of praying." Prince turned back to her. "He was right. It took me 10 years to understand that. You already know it. You just don't trust it yet." "I'm just a waitress," Désiré whispered. "No, you're a singer who pays bills by waitressing. There's a difference." Prince reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a small notebook and a pen. He wrote something down, tore out the page, handed it to her. Désiré looked at the paper. An address. A time. Paisley Park. Tomorrow. 2 p.m. The guard at the gate will have your name. Be there. I can't. I have work tomorrow. My shift starts at—" "Call in sick." Prince's voice wasn't harsh, just certain. "This matters more." "Why are you doing this?" Désirée's voice broke on the question. Prince walked toward the door, stopped, turned back. "Because someone opened a door for me once. When I was nobody, when I was playing for free in clubs that didn't pay rent. Someone heard me and gave me a shot. I can't close the door for someone else." He started to leave, then paused one more time. "One more thing. When you come tomorrow, don't try to impress anyone. Just sing the way you sang tonight. Like you're praying. That's what they need to hear." The door opened. Cold air rushed in. Prince walked out into the snow. The purple cap, the black coat, disappearing into the Minneapolis night like he'd never been there at all. Désiré sat at the piano, holding the piece of paper with Paisley Park's address written in Prince's handwriting. Her hands were still shaking, but this time it wasn't from fear. The next day, Désiré called in sick to work for the first time in 10 months. She took the bus to Chanhassen, a 40-minute ride through the Minnesota suburbs. She'd never been to Paisley Park before, had seen it on television, in magazines, but never imagined she'd actually walk through those doors. The security guard at the gate had her name on a list. "Miss Johnson, they're expecting you. Studio C. Someone inside will show you the way." Inside, Paisley Park was exactly what Désiré had imagined, and nothing like it. The walls were white and purple. The floors gleamed. The air smelled like expensive perfume and possibility. A young woman with a clipboard met her in the lobby. "Désiré Johnson?" "Yes." Follow me, please. They walked through corridors lined with gold records, past studios where music leaked through soundproof doors, past rooms full of equipment Désiré couldn't name. Finally, they stopped outside a door marked Studio C. They're ready for you. Désiré walked in. The studio was larger than her entire apartment. A grand piano sat in the center under warm lights. Three men sat in the control room behind glass. One of them was a producer she vaguely recognized from album credits. The others she didn't know. Prince wasn't there. The producer's voice came through the intercom. Désiré, we're going to record 3 songs today. Prince said you know A Case of You. What else can you sing? Désiré's mind went blank. I know some Nina Simone, some Roberta Flack. Good. We'll do A Case of You first, then Feeling Good. Then you pick the third one. Take your time. There's water by the piano, whenever you're ready. Désiré sat at the piano. Her hands were shaking again. But then she remembered what Prince had said last night. Don't try to impress anyone. Just pray. She closed her eyes, thought of her mother, thought of the empty restaurant at midnight, thought of the man who'd listened when he didn't have to. And she sang. 3 hours later, she walked out of Paisley Park with a demo tape, a phone number for a vocal coach, and an invitation to come back next week for more recording sessions. She never became famous. Not in the way Prince was famous, but over the next 25 years, Désiré Johnson built a career in music. She released 2 independent albums in the early 1990s. She toured as a backup singer for several major artists, including 3 tours with Prince between 1993 and 2002. She became a respected name in the Minneapolis music scene, the singer other singers called when they needed someone who could deliver soul, not just notes. In 2004, she opened her own small recording studio in North Minneapolis, where she taught young singers what Prince had taught her that night in Nicolette Bistro. Don't rush. Give the song space. Pray instead of performing. She saw Prince occasionally over the years, not often. He'd show up at the studio once or twice a year, usually unannounced, usually late at night. He'd listen to whatever she was working on, offer a comment or two, then disappear again. In 2009, he came to one of her small club performances at the Dakota Jazz Club. Sat in the back, alone, just like he'd sat alone at Nicolette Bistro 20 years earlier. When she finished her set, she walked to his table. Thank you for coming. Prince smiled. You're not rushing the second verse anymore. You taught me that. No, I reminded you. You already knew it. That was the last time she saw him. On April 21, 2016, Prince died at Paisley Park. The news hit Désiré like a physical blow. She'd known he was mortal, obviously. Everyone was mortal. But some part of her had believed Prince would always be there, appearing and disappearing like some kind of musical guardian angel. A year later, in May 2017, a music journalist working on a piece about Prince's legacy tracked down Désiré. They met at Nicolette Bistro, which was still there, still run by Miss Lorraine, who was 99 years old now and still serving the best jambalaya in Minneapolis. They sat in the same corner booth where Prince had sat that November night in 1989. Tell me about the night you met him, the journalist said. Désiré looked at the piano in the corner, the same old Steinway, still out of tune, still waiting. He didn't have to do that, she said quietly. He was Prince. He could have finished his coffee and left, and I never would have known he heard me. But he didn't. He stayed. He listened. He opened a door. Did he ever tell you why? Once, years later. We were at Paisley Park, working on a track. I asked him why he'd helped me that night. He said, because someone helped me once when I was nobody. And if I closed the door for you, I'd be closing the door for that kid I used to be. The journalist wrote that down. What do you think he heard in you that night? Désiré thought about that for a long time. I don't think he heard a great singer. I wasn't a great singer yet. I think he heard someone who loved music the way he loved music. Someone who was singing because they had to, not because they wanted to be famous. He recognized that hunger, that need, and he remembered what it felt like to have that need and no way to feed it. What did he teach you? He taught me that technique without soul is just noise, and soul without technique is just potential. But when you bring them together, when you stop performing and start praying, that's when music becomes what it's supposed to be, A conversation between the divine and the human. Désiré's eyes filled with tears. Even a year after his death, the loss was fresh. The greatest gift wasn't the studio time or the career opportunities. It was that he saw me when I was invisible. He heard me when I was singing to an empty room. He reminded me that I mattered, that my voice mattered, that the thing I was doing alone at midnight in a restaurant after everyone had left was sacred. The journalist asked one more question. If you could say something to him now, what would it be? Désiré smiled through her tears. Thank you. For stopping when you could have kept walking. For listening when you could have ignored. For remembering what it felt like to be the kid who needed someone to open a door. You changed my life in 20 minutes, and I spent the next 28 years trying to do the same for other people. She stood up, walked to the piano, sat down, played the opening chords of A Case of You. This time she didn't rush the second verse. Outside, the Minneapolis snow was falling again, just like it had that night in 1989. And somewhere, in the space between the notes and the silence, Prince was listening. If this story reminded you that greatness isn't just measured in platinum records and sold-out stadiums, but in quiet moments of generosity that echo through decades, hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone who needs to remember that one act of kindness can change everything. And comment below, has anyone ever opened a door for you when they didn't have to? How did it transform your life?